Welcome to Dayton Warcry Club. I'm Warren, and today I'm joined by my co-host Dave. Tonight we'll be talking about blessings, where best to use them, and some lists you may want to try with them. We'll also have some event coverage of a tournament I went to in St. Paul, as well as some results from Kansas City, all leading up to the Nova Open. All this and more on Dayton Warcry Club. Hey Dave, how's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good. Might have a little bit shorter episode tonight with just the two of us. We might get a couple other folks later, but yeah, we're just going to do a little bit of catch up here. We're coming up on Nova Open, and so I had a few thoughts on blessings I wanted to get out there, plus a few other events to kind of cover. So we'll get right into it, though. We got news and previews. I don't think you have a hobby update. I didn't have anything.
No, it's been a little quiet around here lately.
Yeah, work's been kicking my butt too. But yeah, I have reports from my trip last month. We got some lists to talk about. One that you might like a lot, and then our main topic will be blessings. So since our last episode, we talked about Crypt of Blood, but we also know a little bit more now. So Crypt of Blood is out now, and we also know how much it costs. And we're not going to beat this one to death. I was, swearing up and down it's going to be $100 US, and it wound up being 110. So I think it's probably. I'm seeing online some people are seeing it and they're thinking, okay, it's a good place to start, which it might be, but man, not a lot of value there.
That one's a little hard to swallow. I really kind of thought 90 was a reasonable price point, with 100 kind of pushing it, and so here we are.
Yeah, probably should have been $80. Someone, I think it was Optimal Game State, they did a video talking about the Age of Sigmar starter set and how it's a better value. You don't get the rules, but you can get the rules for free online. You don't get any terrain, but you get like a little box thing. You get like 3 times as many miniatures. You get like Vanquishers, a Vanquisher Prime. You get a fair number of Cruel Boys. You have a couple points left over, but you could use blessings to kind of fill that out. So, yeah, it seemed like a way better starter set.
Yeah.
Obligatory meme. GW just can't get out of their own way.
They like money.
Yeah. Next up, we saw this as well. So we have Wildercorp Hunters. So this looks great.
We got some good boys.
Yeah, we got dogs. We got plenty of dogs. We got dudes with crossbows. And this is an actual Warcry box. So we're going to get Warcry rules for it, which is like amazing because there's been all sorts of other like good looking miniatures. As the time of recording today, the pre-orders went live for all the new Cities of Sigmar stuff. So, all of it looks really, really cool, but I'm not sure how much of it is going to have Warcry rules or what.
Yeah, but the Wildercorp look great. I mean, never have too many good boys on the field.
Yeah, that's actually I'm actually counting for the first time. Looks like 11 models. So the dogs would probably be pretty cheap. So it'd be kind of like a kind of a swarm list there. The range attack guys may or may not be good. I'm not expecting them to be good, but just in terms of flavor, yeah, I'm all about this.
Yeah.
So leading up to my little tournament report here. So this was last month in St. Paul when I was on vacation, and I promised during the last episode that if I did well, there would be a report, and if I didn't do well, then we would never hear about it again. But no, I did actually. I did very well. I went 3-0 there, and got a nice little prize. So I think it is worth talking about a little bit more. The lists work very well, and it was a very entertaining narrative format. So Avery was the the tournament organizer. I tried to get him on this weekend, but the timing didn't work out. So I wanted to kind of pick his brain and talk to him about the format. But as we kind of talked about, it's like this escalation format where you have a few more points to spend things on each round. So you have a few more things to spend things on each round. So I base my list off of Kyle Smith's Flesh Eater Courts list from Adepticon. You can see that right there. Really good list, and that's kind of what I wanted to base it around. However, I had a couple limitations with the list. In round one, you're only allowed to have one hero, so obviously you can't play that list as is, which is fine because actually I think, although it's a solid list, it's only 7 models, and I, having played 7 model lists, I'm a little leery of them. I would like to have a few more models, but I think the problem solves itself because as you add points for each round, then that allowed me to play 8 ghouls and 8 models or 9 models.
So you have to just set out. You got to actually replace it and then change the list up once you got more heroes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way it worked is you brought a roster, and I can't remember how many models you could bring on the whole roster. So there you can see my whole Flesh Eater Courts collection. I even brought the Duke's Harriers just in case. Duke's Harriers and the Crypt Flayers or Crypt Infernals or whatever. But the star of the show was the freshly painted Vargulf Courtier with the Terrifying Frenzy. That triple did a lot of work. Just the model itself was oftentimes the strongest model on the board and just bullied around everybody else. And I was actually also very, very pleasantly surprised by the Flesh Eater Courts reaction, Baffling Parlay. So before, if you get an attack as a defensive reaction, and you can say parlay, and when you use the reaction, it's -1 attack against you. So it's really good on the Crypt Ghouls because the Crypt Ghouls aren't expected to really do any damage anyway. They're just straight up, just chaff. They're super weak, toughness 3, 8 wounds, really weak profile. They can move pretty quickly, but really you just want to run them around, run away from enemies, and try to keep them alive. And Baffling Parlay works perfectly for that strategy. And in some cases, I had to use Baffling Parlay on a couple larger models as well, to try to, when they're under pressure, to try to keep them alive. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be real solid.
It was. And the thing to keep in mind, the thing I noticed is that since there's the move, there's kind of been a move to lower attack, higher strength models, like your 3/5, 3/5 profiles.
Right.
Baffling Parlay does pretty good work against them.
Right.
Going from 3 attacks down to 2, that's a big decrease in incoming damage coming in. So
that's strong. How much of strategy is trying to get those extra attacks back?
Yep. So I'll just talk about the rounds just really quickly here. And the missions we did. And these will actually be the missions that we play tomorrow as well. So the first round was Dangerous Game versus Chris on Untamed Beasts, and I played Chris at Nova Open, or not Nova, at Adepticon. I played him in the first round in the narrative event, and he beat me there. He smashed one of my Stormcasts with a Heart Eater, and kind of edged ahead in the mission that we played. So this is my chance to get revenge. And so there you can see my list. I didn't play the Ghoul King in this one. I just used the Vargulf Courtier, 2 Crypt Horrors, which are very just really solid fighters. When you look at their profile, 28 wounds, 4/4/2/4 profile, and 6 Crypt Ghouls. So I had a good number of models. 9 models felt really, really good at 1,000 points. It's been a while since I've had the luxury of having, activation advantage.
Right.
So the way this mission works, every turn you pick a fighter, an enemy fighter, to be a hunted fighter, and it's like a kill mission, and you get 1 point every time you take down a hunted fighter. And there's a couple additional conditions that you can get maybe 2 points or 3 points for the hunted fighter. So if the hunted fighter has the most wounds on the board, then it's worth 3 points. So that would have been my Vargolf courtier, but he never got named. And if you can kill a leader, if a hunted fighter is a leader, you get 2 points. So the way I looked at these missions, because I hadn't played any of these before, I just kind of looked at it like I had to come up with some sort of game plan here, and kind of imagine how it's going to play out. So what I did was I just assumed that my Crypt Ghoul is going to get picked every turn, and he had Plains Runners for me to pick every turn, and both of them go down very, very quickly to each other's attacks. So if nothing else happens, it becomes a draw. It becomes a 4-4 draw. With his leader being a Heart Eater with 20 wounds, I thought I had a chance to lure his leader into combat, and then I could name it as hunted and then kill it for 2 points, and that turns a 4-4 game into a 5-4 game in my favor, and that was my strategy. And that actually is how it played out. We were rumbling, killing. He was killing some ghouls. I was killing some Plains Runners, and I got to kill his leader when it was hunted with the Vargolf courtier. Managed to do that, and I think I had a ghoul that actually got away too. So I think the end result was 5-3. But yeah, it was an interesting twist on a kill mission.
Yeah, I actually like that. That sounds interesting.
So next up, I got to play against Dan, so the Salty Sea, on Strewn Riches. And so Dan had a little bit of an advantage here because, he designed these missions, right? This is his mission pack.
This is the title pack.
Yep. These are all from the title pack.
Okay.
And I'll put the link to the title pack in the video description as well. I set up a custom URL for it for us to use for the event. So this is one of those missions where there's kind of two things going on, kind of like, we played some Rumble Pack missions with randomly rolled Rumble Pack missions with a couple different things going on. So here you have half of it is a table quarters game. The second half there is where you get 1 point per round if you have a fighter in each table quarter, or you get 1 point for every table quarter that has one of your fighters in it. But it's not like the Rumble Pack mission where you have to be alone in the table quarter. So that one's pretty easy to score. You can just kind of assume that both of us, if nothing else happens, both of us will score 4 points a round. So there's 16 points up for grabs there. And there's also 5 treasures as well, but the treasures don't get scored until the end of the game. So there's 10 points up for grabs there. So the way I figured this would play out, and it pretty much did. We're kind of jockeying for position, not aggressively going for treasures, but positioning ourselves to go get treasures. Two treasures were easy for him to get. 2 were easy for me to get, and the third, the one to the center, actually was It was a board. It was elevated. Let me double back here. Here you can see, actually, this is the board that we played on. You can see where there's the elevated the elevated bridge there. Yeah, that's where the center treasure was. And so I was positioned where I could walk up there pretty quickly. Where he was at, where Dan was coming in from, he would have actually had to try to climb up, and he's playing Iron Jaws, so he would have had kind of a hard time getting up there. plus I had the only flyer on the board.
Yeah,
So my
having
strategy,
the flying Vargolf is a huge bonus there.
yeah. So my strategy was to just on the last turn of the game, have the Vargolf, make sure that our Vargolf's not tied up, and have it within range, fly up, loot the treasure, and no one should be able to take it down. So, and that's pretty much how it played out. I think I scored a couple I think I pulled a slight lead on the table quarters, but it did wind up coming down to the final treasure, and I won initiative in the final round and managed to score it. If not, I believe Dan would have had the ability to potentially rampage up and grab the treasure. I forget the specifics. It was a super tight game though, and it did come down to the last round. Dan was running. I think he had at least one brute. He had a mega boss, and he had at least one rock gut Troggoth. And so this is my first time playing against a Troggoth, and yeah, they are very, very good for 185 points.
Yeah.
28 wounds.
Yeah. Hit hard and hard to bring down.
Yeah, 28 wounds, 5 toughness. They have an ability that lets them heal if they get in real trouble. So the Vargolf was able to take one down. I think I was feeding Crypt Horrors to the Mega Boss to try to slow it down. But that was. And there you can see my list for the round. The Courtier, the Ghoul King, the 2 Crypt Horrors, and 4 Crypt Ghouls for a total of 1,040 points.
Now, isn't the Troggoth isn't that a 3 attack model that is affected more strongly by parlay?
It is another 3 attack model, yes. So I don't think the Courtier ever needed a parlay against it, but I believe this is the first round I started using parlay, and I believe I managed to burn up some extra attacks from a Troggoth by parlaying there strategically.
Which is strong. I mean, that's.
Yep. Yeah, I think there wound up being some very, very tight attacks where like I had ghouls left on 2 hit points or something like that. So that put me. So at this point, I'm the only undefeated, but I still have to win the next round. If I lose the next round, I actually slip out of first place. So the next round I played against Cody on Cruel Boys. And so now we're getting up to 1,100 points. And he had a Killaboss on Great Gnashtooth. He had a Troggoth as well. He had a couple of the Bladeborn models, the Underworlds models, and actually they're really good. One of them's a Netter, and I need to draw something on the screen here. So I played on this sweet 3D printed terrain board. I wanted to play on this because it looked really cool. JJ had built a couple of these tables, and so the way this is lined up here, say I'm the blue, the castle is kind of set up like this, and these are the steps coming up, and we place objectives for this mission, and you score points every turn for controlling objectives. So he started off as our shield start on the board. So I have the Vargolf Courtier on the board. He has his Killaboss starting on the board, and he gets a rampage turn 1. And he very aggressively rampages straight across the board into I believe the objective is right here. I think I might have moved on to the objective, but he was immediately doing some serious damage to the Vargolf Courtier, and so I'm immediately on the back foot there. Mm-hmm. And you can see the profile on the Killaboss. He has toughness 5, 38 wounds, and since I got hit first, I was probably not winning the fight. So what I wound up having to do was from the objectives on the board, just trying to get as many guys on the board as possible and score as many points from winning objectives and get an early lead and hopefully try to protect that lead. So that wound up being my strategy based on his aggressive trying to alpha strike me.
Mm-hmm.
And
is there really a more kill a boss tactic than trying to alpha strike with a rampage on turn 1 though?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And he had a Troggoth too, and the Troggoth was also pretty rough. I didn't have a whole lot that was able to take up the Troggoth with my courtier being taken down. I believe I was able to use some Cryptors to try to take out a couple models. Again, try to fight for activation advantage because I'm losing models for sure in this game as well. And it was tough getting around though. In the other 2 games, I had a whole lot of freedom and I was able to make good use of the movement 5 on my ghouls or 6 on the horrors. Here you can see in the terrain there, you have a whole lot of like lanes and choke points and stuff like that. And so very hard to like get away, right? Here you can see my Vargal trying to run away. Or actually, no, this was the start. Actually, this was the start of the game. So here's this is where my Vargal started. But you can see like once you're in a fight, very, very hard to kind of get away there. Normally I'm like zigzagging across the battlefield, and you really couldn't do that here. So
really is good looking terrain though.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. I wanted to play on it. I didn't even think about like the strategic implications of it.
Just wanted to experience it.
Right. It actually, well, it kind of helped in a way though, because what I was kind of able to do, like the staircases are narrow, so they want to be in choke points, and you could place a ghoul within 3 inches of an objective, but I was able to block him from getting past, which was good because now he has to kill the ghoul. And then also the other twist to this, besides being a straight up, score points for objectives, if you're fighting on an objective and both models are within 3 inches of the objective, if they're both contesting it, if you kill a model, you score a victory point, just right off, just straight up. So there's up to 20 points available for scoring objectives, but then you could also score some points by killing things on the objective. And so that could cut into my lead because I'm focusing on scoring points.
Right.
So things are falling apart. I think I lost the courtier. I think I lost both the Cryptors. I lost most of my big models, but I did score enough points to where we got to turn 4, and it was looking like even if he had like 5 capped me, I don't think he would have caught up. I built up that much of a lead. But yeah, it was a great game from Cody. I was sweating the whole time during this game because I was playing from behind. The other 2 games, I kind of had a plan and executed the plan, but this one, like, things did not go to plan. And there's a lot of really, really good models there. He had a fair number of just the basic gut rippers, I believe. And I mean, those are super solid models as well. Like, you have to put a lot of effort into killing them in a fight as well. And again, my ghouls are not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah, they're just running around trying to stay alive, trying to cap objectives. But things worked out. So I got a sloppity biopiper for my troubles. And so if I had any sort of hobby picture, it would have been the sloppity biopiper I picked up. And then I also picked up some used plague bearers. So the Nurgle I'm on the Nurgle train now. Everybody watch out.
And once you get sloppity, it's all downhill from there. Like, there's no stopping that train.
Yep. Well, I got sloppity. I got a Pox Bringer used for a good price. They're both 130 points models, but really the out of the plague bears, I went and actually got the bits to upgrade one to like the leader guy. And really honestly, all I really need is the 90-point leader guy. But I have options. I'll have options. On the way back, I stopped in Madison, and I got to play against only one guy was able to come out. I got to play against Mike. Mike hangs out with the Dogs of War crew in Madison, and so we played a friendly game. It was actually one of the new missions from the White Dwarf. We played the one. It was like the King of the Hill one with the altar.
Okay.
And I got to play against his Space Jam Trogoth list,
which is sweet. That is a sweet paint job.
Yep. I think I had seen him. I hadn't seen any like I hadn't seen really good pics of it, but he played it at Adepticon as well for the competitive event. It was Mollog, Fellwater. I think it's 2 Rot Guts and Brugit and Progveneta. So just 6 models. So that was a good game, and that was one where I had a I had a Crypt Horror try to fight Mollog, and Mollog like 2-shot it.
Yeah.
Because he 1-shot it because he got double Brugit. He had a double Brugit potion, so he attacked like 8 times and just smashed it 1 shot. But then he tried to run into a lowly Crypt Ghoul, and I just sat there and parlayed. And so Mollog goes to 1 attack without the ability of a Brugit, and I was able to hold him off. So it was about trying to just get on the platform and then just try to block all the possible entries onto the platform. All the different places he could possibly climb up. But that was fun. He's a cool guy. So I made it back though, and the TO from Kansas City actually posted some results. He shipped me these, but he also put them up on Discord as well. They had a Kansas City event, and this is a competitive event. I think they're trying to get ready for Nova Open as well. And check this out. I showed you this earlier, but first place was Slaves to Darkness.
Yeah, this is I'm taking full credit for this. This is my list. This is what I got when we did our event. This is my second place list that I lost only to Ryan. But yeah.
Okay, we had it published. All right.
Yep, we did. It should be published. So yeah. Obviously this is a list I have played a lot. It's very strong. I love the Myrmidon, I love the Varangard. Your Marauders do what they do. The Chaos Lord is okay for the points. It's okay. It's has decent attacks and can take some decent hits. It doesn't do anything especially great, but it fills a role. So
the points fit exactly, right?
Yeah.
Unless I messed up the points there, because FOMO is 5 points cheaper than the Ogroid, but there's really not a whole lot more you can get for an extra 5 points on the Chaos Lord.
Right.
And he can take a hit too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he has I think 25 wounds.
Yep, got 25 wounds, toughness 5, strength 4 attacks is strength 5, 2/5. So, we were really high on the War Queen early on, but we kind of found that the War Queen had to be used correctly and might have been a little fragile, but Chaos Lord, I think, had a little more flexibility there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've like I said, I've had a lot of success with this list. I think it's a good list. I'm glad to see it doing well elsewhere.
And then second place, we have Cruel Boys. So we don't have the exact list, but we think it's something. It's this list plus or minus a model or two. It has a Kill Boss with Boss Haka, I believe. For 180 points, you get the Kill Boss with a Boss Haka and Shield. For 190, it could be the Boss Haka and Flail. It has a Brewgit because every destruction list needs at least one Brewgit. It has Rockgut Troggoth. Again, super strong, like we talked about. You get 6 Gut Rippas with spears. There was a Stab Grot, so he comes with the Killaboss. And the last model was unknown. If you had the 180 point Killaboss, that puts you at 930 points and 11 models counting the unknown model. So the last model, it could be, I think Steven said it might have been something small, maybe a Pot Grot, but that leaves some points. 70 points is exactly the right number for a single Hobgrot Slitta, or a second Brewgit potentially. So you have some flexibility here. The core of this, again, you have a ton of models. The models are very, very hard to shift. And you could definitely play around with like the last couple models. And the other cool thing is, if you have a Brewgit and a Rockgut Troggoth, the rest of those models all come from a Dominion box or some of those other Age of Sigmar starter boxes. So this would be like a pretty good solid list, pretty easy to pick up all the pieces for. Stop the presses. We have a placing list for Savage Oryx.
Not Cruel Boys.
Not Cruel Boys, not Iron Jaws, but Savage Oryx.
A lot of orcs this week. We've talked about quite a bit of orcs this week.
Yeah, this week is the week of the orcs. He had the Savage Orc Moorboy boss at 175. He had a Brewgit as well, because gotta have a Brewgit.
Gotta have the Brewgit.
Yep. He had the 190 point Brute boss with Boss Choppa. So allied in, there's another hard hitter for you. Helps versus swarms as well. You have 2 big Stabbas at 165 points each. Big Stabbas, I think, are the reason to play. The reason to play this orc faction. They just look so ridiculously cool with just 2 guys with a big stick. Good damage profile, 3/5, 3/6, 25 wounds. Yeah, like that's the reason to play them.
Oh yeah.
Has Wallop the Skull from the Bladeborn from Underworlds. So you can play him. He's a similarly statted Moorboy with a little bit different weapon, but decent profile, 3/5, 2/5. And he also had a Moorboy with Bone Totem. So that's the 3-inch range, 115 point Moorboy. So 1,000 points, 7 models. He posted on Discord afterwards and kind of gave a list review of it himself. He said, yeah, I think he said the Moorboy boss, and this is Jack Adkins, by the way, is the pilot. Jack said the Moorboy boss was good, but a little bit of a glass cannon, which for 175 points, he hits hard, but at 20 wounds, I could see that. And if he could make any change, he would have taken the Moorboy with the Bone Totem there. I guess he kind of underperformed, and he would just downgrade him to a regular Moorboy and then use the points on blessings if possible. So you could put like survivability blessings on the Moorboy boss. But yeah, congrats to Jack for making Savage Orcs work.
Cracking it. Cracking the code.
Yep. For the Kansas City tournament, they actually used a I can't remember what they used the Salty Sea packs as well. Yeah, so here you have a 7 model list. Yeah, the title pack. I believe that's what they used. So they had a 7 model list here in 3rd place, 11 models in 2nd place, and again 7 models for 1st place. So the 7 model lists, if you were doing like straight Rumble pack, obviously I don't think you would have seen them do as well. So just kind of, if you're looking at different tournament packs, just kind of know which ones sort of have you working in more with swarms, or which ones where you want to have like some big guys, in where those 7 model lists might be more valuable. So that was the week that was, or the month that was for Warcry. So next we're going to talk about blessings. We're going to talk about brewing with blessings.
Here we go.
So
here's the meat.
Yeah. So this is in White Dwarf 490, and I got the table here. This is as it appears on warcrier.net. Shout out to ServoScribe for running that site. It's by far the easiest place for me to get screenshots and profiles now, as opposed to going through my own PDFs. And the way the blessings work, if you hadn't seen it in White Dwarf 490, is that it's an optional rule, so you can only use them if you and your opponent agree. But it's available for match play. So tournament organizers could use these rules. And after you sit down, so you still build your roster, but you actually don't have to put the blessings on your roster. So you could build a roster with, say, 950 points. And then after you sit down and you figure out what mission you're going to play and who you're going to be playing against, you can write down in secret, on a little piece of paper saying, all right, these are the blessings I'm going to give to my fighters. I'm going to give this guy +1 toughness, or give this guy +1 strength. So I like this because this gives you a way to kind of like tune your list on the fly. There is no roster system in match play to where you could build a roster of 15 models and then pick and choose from your roster, a number of models equal to 1,000 points based on the matchup or the mission. There's nothing like that in this game. So this is a way, I think, that would help some players, help good players kind of like tailor their matchup, and adds a little bit of extra skill to the game. Salty's talked about them a little bit. He said they're not very balanced, and I kind of believe him there. But they're certainly, he likes them a lot. He said he likes them. He thinks they're fun. I think that's a really good endorsement of them, and that's why for the event that we're going to be running tomorrow, we're going to be allowing blessings. So I made sure that the blessing rules were advertised for the event. Thoughts?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I think ferocity is one that a lot of people are going to look at.
+1 attack. Yep.
+1 attack for 25 points, 30 on an elite. Obviously, we've talked a lot. More attacks are better. The more dice you roll, the better your odds are. So, really, swiftness. It probably will be looked at more. How many models are there that their biggest drawback is their 3 movement, or even trying to sneak out a little bit of leverage on an average speed model.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, it's a good way to shore up the shortcomings of a model that you want to play with, if you've got the points.
Absolutely. And just for the record, Dave did not see the slides I had built for this podcast presentation. And you covered 3 of the points that I was going to cover as well.
Yeah.
So the things that you could do with the blessings, you can make big guys bigger. You can improve borderline models, again, like you talked about, shoring up weakness. You can add mobility, like you mentioned, giving an extra point of movement to a slow model makes it a very big threat. You can add survivability to models. I think that might open up, again, sort of that kind of goes along with improving borderline models. Or it also might open up some brand new builds as well, and so there's a few interesting things we can do with those, and we'll talk about those. Or there's been some other folks that have kind of done a little bit of brewing with it as well, and we'll kind of share their thoughts as well. So first off, you mentioned adding +1 attack, and that was my initial response as well. I think everyone's first response to The blessings rule is, oh man, I can make my big monster an even more huge and dangerous monster, right? So here we see a tyrant, and just adding +1 attack to a tyrant makes it a 5/6/4/8 for 345 points. It's a melee monster you would definitely not want to get around, but at 315 points, it's already very expensive, almost a third of your points, and adding +1 attack might just be overkill. So even though I think a lot of folks' initial reaction to using blessings is, yeah, I'm going to just make my guys bigger, I think you may want to think twice about using blessings. Also, keep in mind that blessings have a very real cost attached to them. We're going to kind of look at the cost effectiveness. 30 points is almost almost one Noblar. So, you can add blessings and make your guys bigger, but it's going to affect your model count. And some lists already have like a low model count. We saw a lot of those 7 model lists that were 1,000 points. If you add blessings, you're going down even further. So I think this is worth mentioning up front that, there's a lot of good things you can do with blessings, but I think there's also a lot of traps as well. And I think you want to like very, very carefully pick and choose the blessings you want to use on your fighters.
Yeah, I agree.
So how can we get the most out of our blessings? Well, improving borderline models. I'll give a few examples here. Now, adding +1 attack on a 2 attack model, that's pretty good because you're increasing your damage output by 50%. So you can see that pretty clearly. You could add, another area. There's a class of models that have like a lot of attacks, but only 3 strength. And those aren't good in a lot of situations because, they can get countered off the board. And so we'll look at an example there where we try to add strength to a 3 strength model to see if we can make it, a little bit stronger. There's another, one of the options we can use with blessings is +1 damage, +1 non-crit damage on non-crits. And that gets valuable the more attacks a model has. And for each of these, because you're paying, 15 or 25 points, it's often most cost effective on mid-size or larger models. If you're paying +25 points for an extra attack on a 65-point model, you've taken it from 65 points up to 90 points. And that's a big increase.
Yeah.
But if you're only paying 25 points extra on a 160-point model, that's a much smaller relative increase. So something else you want to keep in mind, there's like this balancing act you have to do though, because again, if you're putting these blessings on way too large of a model, you might actually be putting too many eggs in one basket and hurting your overall model count. So here's a couple of good examples I found here. One is how to put, putting +1 attack on a model. And I forgot this model existed. The Lord Executioner has 2 attacks, 5 strength, 3/6 damage profile for Night Haunt. And I forgot it existed because honestly, I hate 2 attack models. I would probably never ever use them until now, because now you have 3 attacks, strength 5. You're still at a very reasonable 200 points. You have a 3/5, 3/6 damage profile. You're a 6-inch flyer. You're still kind of glassy at 20 points, but at 200 points, that's a pretty good damage profile. Look at that profile on the right, just in a vacuum. Would you play that profile? I would look pretty strongly at it.
Yeah, I would.
For those that like the math hammer, here we have an excerpt from a calculation spreadsheet, and there you can see how much damage we do versus toughness 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can see the effective damage goes up from 4.75 to 7.13. So versus an average model, assuming mostly toughness 4, but potentially a few toughness 5s or toughness 3s, you can reasonably expect to do 7.13 damage per attack. and that gives us our efficiency rating of 28.07 points per effective damage. Remember this stat, we talked about this a few episodes ago. We use this stat to kind of determine efficiency. Lower is better. You want to be paying fewer points. And as sort of a baseline for like what is a good value for this, anything lower than 25, we would consider to be a very efficient damage dealer. So Lord Executioner with one attack, with +1 attack, you're paying 28 points per point of effective damage there. So it's still above that 25 line, but it was at 36 before. So it's gone down quite a bit. It's gotten much more efficient to the point where, it's in a good conversation for being like a super efficient fighter. And that's as a 6-inch flyer. So another example we use, I'll use the Fiend from Slaanesh Demons. There's a few other examples as well. Adding a point of strength to a Fiend costs 20 points. And that takes you from a 4-3-2-4 profile to 4-4-2-4. So it's 180 points, but you still have the special ability. You have 25 wounds. This might be, if you had the spare points, might be worth looking at. If you were playing Slaanesh and you're sick of your attacks just bouncing off of normal strength 4 guys or normal toughness 4 models. If you're playing Slaanesh and you're sick of your attacks bouncing off of basic toughness 4 models, you could add a point of strength there, and that's going to help your damage output against them. Looking at the stats there you can see it only helps versus toughness 3 and versus toughness 4. And with the increase in points, doesn't really increase the efficiency too much. So this is a much more modest increase in efficiency, but it still makes it slightly better. So I promised some lists. So this list is the Grapes of Wrath. So I wanted to find a way to make Wrathmasters and Wrathmongers good. Wrathmasters are already pretty good. 6-4-2-4, but you can add a blessing to give it +1 attack, and now it becomes a monstrous 6-4-3-4 profile. But Wrathmongers really got the short end of the stick in 2.0. Your damage profile went back to a 1-4 profile. But if you pay just 25 points, you can, for 165 points, you can get a Wrathmonger with a 5-4-2-4 profile. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really solid increase. That's 5-4-2-4 is a pretty scary attack profile, especially on a sub 200 point model.
Yep. Dark Oath War Queen, you pay 185 for that. You're paying 165 for this Wrathmonger, and he has a 2-inch range as well with the little flails.
Yeah, that's very strong.
If you look at the numbers, the Wrathmaster is going to, on average, deal 10 points of damage per attack to the average target, sometimes more. Even the Wrathmonger is going to deal 6.67 damage per attack. And if you look at their efficiency, they were already pretty efficient. They had those efficiency ratings at 26 and 28, but both of them get below that magic 25 line now. So they were already kind of scary, but now they're definitely contenders. And so if you wanted to play a list with them, like say you had 3 Wrathmongers laying around in your unpainted miniatures, like I do, you could play a Wrathmaster at 240 with the blessing, 2 Wrathmongers at 330 with the blessings on them. You get 5 Blood Reavers for 325 points, and that leaves I had odd number of points left over, so I just threw in a Blood Warrior with Gore Fist for 105. So it gives you 9 models, 1,000 points. It's all foot sloggers, but you have some real damage dealing threats there and some range.
Yeah, it seems solid.
There's a whole lot of good heroes for Khorne, and the Wrathmongers and the Wrathmasters just have so much flavor. It's a shame to leave them on the bench. So just finding some way to try to use those. This is just a kind of a meme list to kind of build around them, but at 165. I think that Wrathmonger is, competing for, maybe as just a one of in any other Khorne list, it might be competing for a spot.
Yeah, that's a really solid model for 165 points.
Okay. So we also talked about adding mobility. So again, we have, movement 3 fighters, super efficient for their points cost. But imagine how much scarier they'd be with an extra point of movement. And so I picked 3 examples here. Imagine an Orc Mega Boss at 250 points, but able to move 4 instead of move 3. Imagine a Brute Boss with Boss Choppa. He's 215 points, but he's almost as scary. He's got 3/6/3/6 damage profile, 30 wounds, movement 4. Or imagine a Paladin of Star Soul Mace, able to move 4 with his 3/5/4/8 profile. You get that for 170 points. 170 points.
Yeah.
Now, so that's good enough, right? But if you really want to take advantage of that additional point of movement, you want to use fighters with the ability to use additional bonus moves. So that's why I picked those 3 examples. Iron Jaws have charge. Paladins with Star Soul Mace have access to Furious Avengers, and those, for the low cost of the double, give you a bonus move action. So not only can they just move 4 by themselves, but they can move 4 just by spending a double in most cases.
Right. So you're really getting, especially with these, with the bonus action, it's not just 1 inch. It's really more like 2 inches that you're gaining.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of my thinking there. So as long as you can get, with an Iron Jaw, you can charge, move, attack pretty easily. That gives you an 8-inch threat range, 9 inches with the weapon. So if you wanted to build a list here, so this is just 6 models, but this is really leaning into the additional mobility there. So for 180 points, you can get the leader of your choice. I picked a Retributor Prime, another 3-inch. This is just a 3-inch move model without any blessings. I wanted 2 Paladins with the Star Soul Maces with that movement buff. And I want to pair each of them up with a Quester Soulsworn. And you can use your choice of Quester Soulsworn there. So now you have, in addition to Furious Avengers, you could just use the Quester Soulsworn to also give bonus moves to your guys and cruise and send them across the board. So now you have multiple ways to get bonus moves and get those Paladins into combat. And with 40 points left over, I had just enough points for a Protector to get up to 6 models. So it's 1,000 points, 6 models. I have no idea how that would work, but it's interesting at least. Again, this is just kind of playing all into this mechanic of bonus movement with Paladins and fast moving Paladins. You could also do this with Annihilators as well. The Annihilators at 130 and 145 points, they would be pretty affordable as well. And that might give you a little bit extra room for additional models.
Yeah, on paper, these all sound worth trying at least, right?
Yep. Again, these are just, throwing these out there. They're probably going to be pretty rough, but again, just kind of proof of concept to show you exactly what you can do with some of these mechanics if you went all in on them. Okay, next up, Survivability. So survivability is a little bit different. You pay the same price for any model. So before you paid a little bit more on the big models. Here, you can give any model 4 wounds for just 15 points. So here, this is going to be more effective on your cheaper models or your glass cannons, because they're the ones that need the extra wounds
Right.
more.
We've talked a lot about the War Queen today, and this is, I think, she's a good example of somebody who benefits from an extra 4 wounds.
Ooh,
Or
I hadn't thought
conversely,
about that.
even bumping up her toughness from 5 to 6. Either of those, I think.
Yeah. So there's some interesting thoughts. Someone in Discord had asked about, whether or not it would, what gives more survivability, toughness 6 or +4 wounds? And the answer is it depends.
Right.
Going from 5 to 6 is pretty good, but speaking from experience, I've experienced this, and Fred's experienced this. When you get crit, it doesn't matter what your toughness is.
Right.
How many?
I lean more towards bumping her wounds up to 24.
Right. So yeah, she has she has 20 base wounds, and she would go from 20 to 24.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good because she's still 200 points.
Yeah.
I wish I'd put that there. I should have picked your guys' brains for this. Yes, put the War Queen on there too. The examples I chose, there's a couple of Skaven glass cannons. There's the Doomflayer and the Warp Grinder. One of them is like 150 points and 12 wounds. I thought about that one, but I think it was even still going to be kind of really, really glass cannony, but you could do something like that. But I picked a Warp Fire Thrower. I think it was kind of reasonable at 105 points for 12 wounds, and a lot of people like the Warp Fire Thrower anyway. But at 120 points for 16 wounds, now it becomes like a reasonable piece that would not get 2-shot off the board, because if your opponent wants to take it out, they're probably going to engage it and take it out. An even better example that I know from personal experience is the Prey Takers from Untamed Beasts. They are great models with great damage profiles, but they're both, no matter the loadout, they're both 100 points, toughness 4, and 10 wounds. And I think that the Prey Takers are the real Achilles heel of the Untamed Beasts if you're playing 1-box Untamed Beasts. So just by simply adding 4 wounds to a Prey Taker, you're at 115 points. And then look at that profile in a vacuum. That profile looks a lot more attractive now, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
14 wounds, you can expect it to take a couple hits now. Another one I forgot to include that might have been a little bit glassy, that might be a little more reasonable, might be Bestigors from Beasts of Chaos. And then also there's a whole ton of glass cannons in Dars of Cain and Splintered Fang, to where just by wholesale dishing out a lot of wounds across all of your chaff or all your mid-range models, that might give your warband the survivability that it won't get blown off the board in like 2 turns. And then finally, Off Meta Musings had posted this idea in Discord, and this is actually pretty brilliant too. So if you're familiar with Off Meta's Hunter's Hawanchi list, what he's proposing is essentially cutting a model from Hunters of Hawanchi. I think this winds up costing him 1 model. And he's going to take all the Hawanchi's claws and upgrade them. They're already 10 wounds, and he's going to bump them up to 14 wounds. So now the fighters that are like the backbone of his warband are all going to be 14 wounds and pretty hard to take off the board. I think that puts them at 90 points apiece, if I'm not mistaken. But even still, the rest of that warband is so inexpensive that you have a decent amount of survivability and 10 models on the board. So a strategy like this might also be good for your warband if you're having a lot of trouble with survivability. Remember, it's only 15 points to add 4 wounds. In a lot of cases, you might just be able to cut one model and spread out and give up extra wounds to a number of models, and that might change the whole way that your warband plays.
I wonder how much testing they did to come up with 4, because it's just 5 seems so much more. Everybody likes round numbers, so there has to be a reason they went with 4.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It does seem arbitrary. For the most part, I think they all kind of make sense. Without getting into the math or the linear regression of whatever the pointing algorithm is, or if they just happen to, randomly fall upon well-balanced models. Off Meta has done a little bit more work with the linear regression. I've barely had time to do regular podcasts, no time for hobby. I haven't had time to dig into like linear regression and more math hammer about that, although I'd be very interested in really cracking the code. But yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. It all kind of makes sense though.
It does.
We're taking a glass cannon prey taker here, and at 115 points, 3-5, 2-5, 4 toughness, 14 wounds. That's like a chaos warrior, right? It's or close to a chaos warrior profile. Yeah, one less toughness, but and then finally is one of the blessings could potentially open up new unique builds. So credit goes back to Dan Salty C for this one. He was brewing up some lists, and so the Spite blessing says you make up to 1 free reaction per battle round as if spending a level of renown. And he had, if you want to go all in on pink horrors and blue horrors, if you give Spiteful to the pink horrors, that lets them use their split reaction regardless of whether or not they've activated. That's been the challenge with Tzeentch Demons. I think a lot of folks were trying to make pink horrors work, but the issue with them is that pink horrors and iridescent horrors are so expensive that it forces you to have a low model count, and it's very easy then, if you have a low model count, to target models that have already activated, and they're not going to be able to do the split if you kill them. So the best way we've seen to make this work would be just use blue horrors, and you spam blue horrors, and maybe a couple other units like a screamer or a flamer or something like that. So what the Spite opens up is it makes pink horrors viable now.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about horrors and how to best.
This was because this is based off of right after Salty posted that video, and that's what got the creative juices flowing there.
Yeah.
So if you look at his proposed list, you can pay 200 for an iridescent horror with Spiteful. You pay 330 for 2 Spiteful pink horrors, and you can get 5 blue horrors for 450. So it adds up to, you get 8 models for 980 points. And if you want to lean all in on the gimmick, that's a good place to start. Now, the issue though, and we were kind of talking about this that afternoon when we were, after it had come out, is that even though it's going to be very hard for them to remove all your models because you're going to be splitting and splitting again. Remember, blue horrors can split into brimstones as well if you attack them and they have a reaction left. So it'd be very hard to wipe you off the board. However, you might have a very hard time killing anything because everything hits. Everything is a range attack, but they're all very, very weak range attacks. So one thing you could do that I was kind of doing as I was brewing around is maybe you could cut one pink horror and one blue horror. That gives you enough points for an Ogroid Thaumaturge potentially. Again, it's not a huge damage dealer, but he's a big guy. He fills the big guy role, and it's in theme for Tzeentch. Another thing you could potentially do is maybe you don't build around Tzeentch demons like this. Maybe it just makes the Spiteful Iridescent Horror at 200 points an ally option that's available for any other warband. So you could play Tzeentch Arcanites and put an Iridescent in, or put the Spiteful Iridescent in any other sort of random warband. Say you had a low model count, for example. A Spiteful Iridescent Horror potentially solves that because it's going to turn into, 4 more models with the splits potentially.
Yeah, that really is a interesting building block to have access to a model that you reasonably can turn into 4.
Yep. Epic Loot did have pink horrors, and I think they had blues sitting in the. I know for a fact they had pinks in there today when I looked. It was tempting, but I didn't buy them.
They generally have pinks.
Yeah. Blues, I can't remember if they did or not.
I'm pretty sure that somebody bought the blues last time we were there, either you or Fred. Maybe it must have been Fred.
It might have been Fred.
Because I believe they had the blues and they came with the brimstones.
Oh, see, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And finally, one other thing to consider here, especially with the spite reaction. So I'll read this again. Make up to 1 free reaction per battle round, as if spending a level of renown. We kind of missed this the first time. If you're putting on a pink horror, you're only ever going to make the reaction once because it happens. It happens after you kill the model. But it gives you, for 30 points. It's not a cheap blessing, but it gives you the ability to use 1 reaction every round. And so where you might start thinking about this is, oh, okay, I can make 1 counter per round, which I think is kind of selling it short. What it does is that if you have a strong reaction, it makes those reactions even better. And so, what's one of your favorite reactions, Dave?
Well, that would be the Slave to Darkness Fortitude buff, the Boon of Fortitude, to heal your model for 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's strong just on a Marauder because it effectively gives them 13 wounds. Now imagine, and Fred gets credit for this. So Fred is gonna try to put Spiteful on his Varangard. And I wish he was on so we could talk about it. But the idea is that he runs the Varangard into combat anyway, regardless. That's just a given. So someone's going to be trying to attack it. And the way that we've seen the Varangard play out in combat, oftentimes you've witnessed this yourself. Oftentimes the Varangard he'll run the Vanguard in and he'll sacrifice it.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the models are going to do the work of winning the game. He uses the Vanguard as like a distraction Carnifex. Sometimes if the Vanguard doesn't die, then obviously you just run it down their throat, and you'll probably win the game that way.
Right.
But sometimes even with toughness 6, the Vanguard is going to go down after a few crits or something like that. Now, with the Boon of Fortitude and being able to use it once per battle round, that effectively gives the Vanguard 42 wounds as opposed to 30. assuming it lives for all 4 battle rounds. So now your Vanguard is kind of in that class, almost kind of goes in that class of fighter where you don't try to kill it. Killing it's a fool's errand, potentially.
Yeah. The Vanguard is already one of the strongest models in the game. So,
Yep.
I mean, basically unkillable Vanguard is a nightmare scenario for many lists.
Yep. And then once it's in combat, right, you're potentially facing, 9 attacks per turn from it.
Yeah. While it heals for 3 points for free.
Yep, for free. Without even burning its reactions or attacks.
Right.
So if you want a list, this is what Fred was going to try to play. He's probably not going to make it tomorrow now, but he was going to play that Vanguard. He was going to put +1 attack on the Fulmoroid Crusher, so that makes it a 4/6, 4/8, I think. So he is kind of going kind of deep on that, but it makes the Fulmo Crusher even more scary.
Yeah.
He downgraded his leader. He's not playing Sloppity Bile Piper anymore. He's playing the 90-point Plague Ridden, but he still has all 6 Plague Bearers. The last list that he ran in our tournament was 975 points. He had points left to spare already. And by downgrading his leader to a Plague Ridden, he has the points to give that blessing to the Vanguard and give the blessing to the Fulmo Crusher, yet still keep 9 models. He's at 995 points currently with that blessing loadout. That is scary, especially considering that Sloppity Bile Piper really wasn't doing a lot in that particular list to move Plague Bears around. He was spending more of his time, more of his dice on the Vanguard and the Fulmoroid than anything else. So that's the scary list right there.
Yeah.
If you're playing a tournament with blessings available, I don't know. It was already a strong list, and I think it just became even stronger. So that kind of gets me back to kind of like my original, or kind of like the original impressions of the blessings. Salty had said that they're unbalanced, and again, I agree with him. I like what they do. I like that they open up unique builds. I like that they make, some fighters that weren't good before, might actually make them viable. But my big concern is that while it opens up some of like these kind of like niche lists and niche fighters, a list like this with cheap chaff, because his list was built around Plague Bears, or maybe say you had a KO list that was built around cheap Arcanauts or something like that. You have points to spare. You have a high model count. You don't really care about cutting a model, right? You're going, if you're going from 10 models to 9 models, you don't care a whole lot, and the gain from the blessings is more than what you lose from losing a single chaff model. Look at Soulblight Gravelords, for example. You might be, instead of playing 13 models in your Soulblight Gravelords list, you might have to go down to 11, but you get a couple of good blessings on your guys. Oh, what a shame, right?
Yeah.
So my concern here long term with these is that even though it opens up things, it makes the rich get richer. The strong war bands, the strong factions that have the good cheap chaff get even stronger because they have more flexibility and more room to use blessings. Like, I wish I could put a Skaven list in here that had blessings. I would like to have the ability, to have some points spare to put +1 strength on a Rat Ogre, for example. But all of my Skaven lists are already so tight for points because everything is so expensive because I'm paying for movement.
Right.
I would have to cut a model, and there'd be some very, very hard cuts to make in order for me to find room for +1 strength on a rat ogre or something like that. I'd have to make some big sacrifices. Fred had 25 points to spare from his tournament winning list, and he was able to downgrade his leader and not lose much and find even more room for points. So long term, I mean, we'll do this tomorrow. I want to see how they go. I want to see what people think here in the local area about it. And we're going to have a couple, we're going to have a couple more events as well locally, like before we do a tournament. And we'll see about the blessings. Right now, I'm still leaning towards using them, but if it winds up, and if people are having fun with them, I think I'll keep them. But if it winds up becoming oppressive, then maybe we go back to regular Warcry. I'm not sure.
Maybe there's a compromise in there where like you get one blessing, like one model gets a blessing, and that's it.
Maybe, yeah. I would like to play the rules kind of like I would like to kind of play the rules as written though, like as completely given to us.
But that might be a good compromise if it starts to become oppressive.
True. It's kind of like a little house rule thing.
Exactly.
What's funny? They're doing a tournament at Warhammer World next month, and they're allowing blessings, but they're not running the blessings the way that they're described in the White Dwarf. In White Dwarf, you get to pick your blessings before each battle, and so you get to do the list tuning like I talked about.
Right.
For that tournament, you're allowed to have blessings, but you have to put them on your roster, and you're locked in for the entire tournament with the blessings that you put on your roster. So the people that put out the rules aren't even following the rules that they put out. I just GW things.
Well, yeah, that's classic Games Workshop.
I mean, it makes things easier, I guess, from a bookkeeping standpoint. But why write the rules like that in White Dwarf? Just say they go on your roster. I don't know.
Can you put blessings on monsters?
Yes, you can. You can put +1 toughness on a chimera to help solve the fact that it can get burnt down quickly, because chimera's got toughness 4.
Yeah, I mean, when you're using a chimera, it's another 15 points, right?
Exactly. I think it might be a couple more points. 1 sec. 20 points.
20 points for the toughness.
What's another 20 points on a chimera?
Right.
You make it toughness 5. Yeah, you get a lot of extra mileage on those 50 wounds. With an extra point of toughness there. And going from 4 to 5 is pretty reasonable, or a pretty noticeable difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think there's much more of a bonus from going 4 to 5 than say 5 to 6.
Yep, absolutely. Well, all right, we're getting close to the end here. Upcoming events. So, as of the time of recording here, it's the weekend before Nova Open. So I plan to have this episode complete and published before I head out to Nova Open. I'm not able to play in the competitive event on Thursday, unfortunately. I have a work thing going on Wednesday. The plan is I should be either leaving very late Wednesday or very early on Thursday, but I do want to get there. It'll be like last year. Last year I got there before the event ended, and I was there to kind of do some event coverage. And so I plan on doing that again this year as well. So what you can expect for the next episode is going to be event coverage. Probably, depending on how fast I can put it together and record it, what you can expect is probably a YouTube short with the top lists from Nova Open, probably within a day or two of the event happening. And there might be we'll do another episode as well. I want to get Justin, the TO, on for next episode, kind of talk about that. But and then maybe some photo coverage or something like that. Maybe video coverage. We'll see. But yeah, this is going to be huge Warcry tournament. Kind of experimental format with group stages and playoffs, and I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, should be a good time.
And for those of us in the local area, the next Dayton event, the store is to be determined, but it'll be Sunday, September 17th. My brother's back in town, so we're going to do a Warcry day that day.
All right.
Go ahead.
I should be back on my normal schedule by then. So.
All right. So you're going to be good for Sunday?
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
All right. And it's I'm going to check and see if there's going to be a conflict at Dragon's Guild Hall, but we might do that one again, or we might go back to Epic Loot. It's going to be one of those two. But you can save the date. It'll be Sunday, September 17th, for sure. This brings us to a close for this episode of Dayton Warcry Club. We'll be back next time with coverage of Nova Open. Until then, if you check out the official Warcry Discord, the link is in the description here. Till then, I'm War Machine.
I'm C Forever.
Thanks for listening. The rough outro, but whatever.